give you a few of those things. Start your time budget with a commitment to God's local church. Start your time budget with a commitment to God's local church. Folks, if we wait till the end of the week, or sort of the end of the time budget, if you will, to decide if we're going to come to church, we will always run out of time. If we say, hey, I'll get there when I get there, maybe it's something like this. Maybe, again, it's also gathering with other believers. If we say we get there when we get there, we'll always run out of time. We'll talk about radical generosity too. Start your financial budget with a tithe of your resources. It's the same thing. That last proverbial dollar is harder to give when it's at the end of the budget, right? But if we start with our tithe, if we start our budget with our tithe, then we begin to prioritize everything under that and say, do I really need this? Do I really need that? Could it be this instead? When we start with the tithe. Number 3, prioritize robust fellowship with other believers. Robust fellowship with other believers. I tell you, I want you to be praying for and eventually get to the point where you do have, as we've talked about before, that 2 a.m. friend. The 2 a.m. friend. That accountability partner. That person that will be willing to speak truth. And not just some sort of a glorified version of a TV, a TV psychiatrist, but I'm saying someone that is willing to speak biblical truth into your life. And then having that vulnerability to welcome that. If you don't have that, I'm telling you, it is tremendously important for your growth. That is really where you get to that iron sharpening iron. But at the very least, robust fellowship with a group of believers. This is great to come and worship together like this. It's great to do that. And this is extremely important what we do, to worship and to hear good preaching and to hear solid preaching. We'll say solid preaching. I don't know if it's good preaching, but solid preaching. To hear those things, to gather together in prayer and worship with each other. But you notice we talk about oftentimes in the seat backs in front of us, we'll say, take a look at those next steps to find a connect group, find a Bible study, because there's something important also about your spiritual growth of not just gathering like this, but gathering in those smaller groups where we can really have discussion over God's truth. We can pray for one another. We can lift one another up. It's important for our growth. And then also, finally, commit to Christ-like growth through essential spiritual disciplines. Commit to those things. Just as like where we began there in verse 42. Biblical truth, fellowship, prayer, breaking of bread, and remembering Christ's sacrifice. Commit to those things in your life so that you take ownership of your own growth to become more and more like Jesus Christ. And folks, when we do all of those things, when we are all in for God's local church, He will once more do great and mighty things through us.